Blog.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar around files with Nutanix and Haiku, so integrated backup data protection with Haiku and Nutanix files. In this webinar, we have present Marco and Manfred. Marco is from Haiku and Manfred is from Nutanix. Hello. So before we start and dive into the details, just want to give you a high-level overview on why we're doing this, right? So if you look at management of data and also the growth of data we have been seeing recently, it's clear that we need to do stuff differently. So like Albert Einstein said, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. And actually, if you look at the growth of data, in 2025, we will be storing 175 zettabytes of data a year. But the thing is, if you look at managing that data, we're doing exactly the same thing and operating exactly the same thing as we did like 15 to 20 years ago. So there is a change, and there is a change going on, of course. We can see also the cloud adoption. And like one of the folks said, using clouds is a completely different way of consuming and thinking. So if you go to Nutanix Files, because this webinar will probably be addressing that, it's one of the fastest growing products we have seen in the history of Nutanix after AOS. Currently, more than 2,500 files customers worldwide, with a total of 100 petabytes of storage under management, almost 200 new customers every quarter, which we're really proud of. And also a 97% retention rate, which actually means that our customers are really happy with the product. Use case we see for Nutanix files typically, application data, so you can find that in content management systems, but also in containers, machine data, IoT output. A large opportunity in medical imaging, really great workloads to address with Nutanix files. Also fast growing market out there. Video surveillance, where we have several certifications. And of course, we'll be storing a lot of data in video surveillance. It's a booming market. And also, of course, active archives, medical data, media assets, backups, financial data. So actually, all over the place, we see customer use cases for Nutanix files. I think we need to dive into a little bit more detail. Manfred, can I hand over to you?
Yes, please. So let me share my screen, just a second. So can you see my screen, Vincent?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so let's dive into the solution. Manfred Buchmann, solution architect. What are we doing? You know, we built a file server that is really defined or designed for the software-defined architecture. So it's really designed for cloud operations. And the real question is these days, you know, we cannot manage the things like we did it before. And the question is, why do we keep storage? Why do we keep backup still as a separated silo and have separate appliances, separate management, rather than bring it like in a cloud platform, bring it on a platform, manage it the same way, simplify everything, and also reduce the cost. And that's really what we do. We bring in the file services into the Nutanix HCI platform or into the Nutanix cloud platform to give you a single view, a single point of operation, and a highly scalable file service. On the right side of the slide, you see what we support. We support all the typical protocols, SMB from 2.0 to 3.0, NFS version 3, version 4, and so on. Everything is highly available, highly protected. What you expect from traditional storage appliances, we bring it now as a software version, highly scalable into Nutanix platform. And that's the same what Haiku does for the backup side. Marco, how you guys do it?
Well, that's why we're here today. You're going to learn everything about how we do it and why we do it and why it's actually really is an integrated data protection solution for Nutanix.
Okay, cool. So now you have backup, files, everything in one platform together with all other applications. Just run files and backup like any other application.
Exactly.
But at the same time, when you virtualize something, you do software defined, it's not only a piece of software. How do I manage it? How do I run it? And for us in Nutanix, the key is give you the insights, the manageability at all layers. At the virtualization at the hardware layer, to give you an insight, do I run out of resources? Do I need to add non-disruptive additional resources? Do I need to add more resources to the VMware layer? Is there something which takes off the resources? Can I manage everything? And that's what Nutanix focus on. At all layers, we give you the manageability and the insights from a virtualization layer, from a file server layer. What's the throughput? What's going on at the protocols? Do we need more space? What are users doing? So we give you all the insights and the non-disruptive manageability at the file server layer. And also Haiku brings it in on a data protection layer. Marco, maybe you want to mention a few things you bring in at this layer from a manageability perspective.
Of course, I mean, basically what customers have with Haiku is integration in a sense that they don't feel or that they don't need to learn actually the product. It feels integrated, it has extremely high performance data protection. And the essence is we use Nutanix technology. We always build on top of Nutanix. And in this case, we use change file tracking to build this seamless backup data protection solution. And you're also utilizing instant recovery, also again, utilizing these snapshots of Nutanix. So it's always about, with Haiku, it's always about using Nutanix as a platform and building on top, ability to back up, offload off the production and archive and so on.
Yeah, and I think one other thing is we also changed the world a bit. You know, we talked about hardware manageability, we talked about traditional file server manageability, and we as Nutanix focus now also on the data layer. Does your traditional appliance tell you how much data you have? When did the user last time access the data? Which files did he access? Are there anomalies in there like ransomware? That's not in traditional file servers. And we also bring in this manageability layer into the file services arena. So management at all layers. And coming back to the backup side, Marco, one interesting thing I learned from you, you also bring in SLA-based backup and even SLA-based restores, which is a game changer in, let me say, backup operations.
In the industry as well. I mean, nobody actually does it for VMs or for files as well. It's a feature which is, I would say, painfully needed by the administrator, but nobody ever went the extra mile to implement something like this, but we did.
Okay. And, you know, here you guys, you see an UI of Nutanix. We give you the overview on the first shot when you go into the Nutanix console. What's going on in the system? Is everything healthy? And then you can dive in deeper. What are the IOPS, the file service doing? So what manageability and insights at all layers to manage data, to manage NAS based on information and not guesses. But at the same time, the focus is it should be so simple that everybody can administrate file services. And that's another focus point of us. So we call it the one-click operation. Everything is one click away. If you see here on the file services, what is my throughput? So we have real insights and everybody can get this information with one click. So you see all the information in here and can manage your file services. What is the age of my data here on the right side? How many file servers or file server VMs build a file server cluster? What's the utilization of the storage underneath? Everything in one UI, always one click away, and you get all the information in there. So everybody can manage files with Nutanix Files. So it's a different way of managing files. Creating a file server in a platform is just a few screens, which you see in here. Let me start off there. This is my laser pointer. You start off and say, what's my file server name? Which network do I use? Where do I get the storage in the Nutanix platform? Which protocols do I want to use? Do I want to use the Windows protocol? Do I want to use SMB? Do I want to join an Active Directory? And then you go say just, hey, that's the protection I need to get on. And 20 minutes later, there's a file server deployed. And you can deploy many file servers on the Nutanix platform. If you're a service provider, you need to service different departments. You just deploy different file servers and join different Active Directories. And it just takes you a few minutes to generate or basically to install a file server in Nutanix. So let me see here. And the same, I believe, applies for you, Marco, on the Haiku side.
Exactly. It's the same as for Nutanix. Simplicity to the fullest, right? You basically just add the file server into Haiku, and you tell us how you want to protect it. Use it SMB or NFS, and you're done. And Haiku as such deploys also in literally 3 minutes. So saying 15 minutes is even too much. But we'll dive deeper in a second.
Yeah, I think we need to start a race in the future. Who can deploy it faster? Something. But the other thing is, you know, how many times you install a file server? That could be once a year, could be 10 times a year, could be once in 3 years. Key is also to simplify, to change the day 2 operations that everybody can manage day 2 operations. One thing is software upgrades. So in the Nutanix platform, you just say, oh, there's a new release available. I want to upgrade it. And then a non-disruptive upgrade starts off. What about the monitoring, the data I talked about already on it? Do we have bottlenecks? Do we need to do something? So you get all the information in there, what you see on this screen about the performance, what's going on in the system. So really manage the system based on information. And this is not only at the file server layer. I also mentioned it when we talk software defined. We have a hardware layer, we have a virtualization layer. So we give you the same insights on the hardware layer, on the virtualization layer, and on the file services layer. So you can manage all levels where the file server runs, all different hardware levels, the whole architecture. And then if you need to change the configuration, it's again one click away. A file server can contain 16 VMs. It starts off with 3. You just say add another VM, or you say the file server need more memory. Just a click away. I give them instead of 30 gigs, I give them 64 gig of memory, or I give them more CPU. That's how easy it is. And Haiku, I think, does the same thing on the backup side.
Definitely. That's why we call it one-click data protection. Everything is one click, but it really is. I mean, when you try, what I love to say to our customers and prospects and partners, everybody uses simplicity these days. You won't find a webinar or software that doesn't talk simplicity. But when you actually try Nutanix and you try Haiku, and you're done in half an hour with every setup that you have without consultants, then you figure out, okay, this is what simplicity really is, right?
Yeah, I think everybody can produce a simple PowerPoint.
Exactly.
UI is the difference.
Exactly.
But I think for some guys, I still wait for the key feature in PowerPoint. Have you heard about it? PowerPoint to code.
I love that one. I'd love to have that one.
But coming back to this one, so we really focus on the simplicity. We focus on the administration, that everybody can manage a NAS device, can deploy a NAS device. You don't need to buy additional large hardwares. You just say, I extend it. Everything is based on software, but the software runs in a way that you can manage it at every layers. And we don't stop there at the hardware, at the file server management. The key is the data management, what you see on the last picture in the middle in here. What about the data? What's the data growth? How much get deleted? But normally data doesn't get deleted. That's the biggest challenge. It's growing and growing. But also the insights. What are the users doing with the data? Do I have a lot of video files? What is in my data, in my NAS? And many times in traditional devices, you know, administrators have no idea what they have in their NAS devices. That's when I talk to customers, the main concern. Our data grows and grow and grow, but we have no clue is 80% aged and 10 years never accessed, whatever, and nobody knows it. So with file analytics, we give you the insight. That's really a game changer in terms of management.
This is very powerful indeed.
Yeah. And now I hand over to you on the file
yes,
side.
let me share the
Marco,
screen
let me
then.
stop sharing.
Okay. Can you confirm that you see, please? So
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
All right. Excellent. So we have gone through this one. So it's time to maybe dive deeper into Haiku and how we do it and what do we do for Nutanix files and why, what does this mean integrated in the first place, right? So with Haiku or with backup in general, usually you always think about it as something that needs to be external, something that needs to be living separately, something creating at the end of the day a silo which you need to separately manage and separately deploy and separate, it's a completely separate world. And with Haiku running on Nutanix files, there is no silo. So think of it Lego boxes thing, right? Nutanix is your big city and you can put Haiku wherever you like on any cluster. So therefore you can run inside the files dedicated cluster, you can run in your existing VM clusters as well, and just protect your Nutanix files. And the way it feels and looks is Nutanix-like, right? Because we built this for Nutanix administrators. So let's not only talk, let's also show you some product in action, right? So let me log into Haiku UI and show you how simple it is to use it. So as you see, the resemblance is here not by chance, something we developed with Nutanix UI experts to make it feel for the Nutanix administrator at home, because we are building this software for the Nutanix admin, not for the backup consultants or the backup admins, right? And whoever is using Nutanix is going to be very easy for him to find the administration button and add the Nutanix file servers into Haiku. So the only thing which you need to do, specify the URL, the REST API access credentials, and tell us which protocol to use, NFS or SMB, to protect the shares. And as soon as you do this, we will automatically discover all the file shares which you have in your system, and then it's just as simple as assigning a backup policy and you're done, right? That's how simple it is to start with the backups. And at the end of the day, we hear a lot of times from our customers is, look, the backup guy is doing something much smarter. My Nutanix admin can handle the backups. And this is what this reducing complexity and at the end of the day, cost of operations as well. Another thing which is interesting is how do we do the backup? What technology, how do we actually do this? When we say it's impact-free, what does this mean? Well, what we do is we create snapshot-based backups and we guarantee data consistency. What does this mean when you say guarantee data consistency? Let's look at the backup as well. So if I double click here on the backup status, you'll see just the steps which we go through. So the first step in every backup is to create a snapshot. And this is Nutanix storage layer snapshots, right? And the second part is to catalog everything, as we'll talk about later as well, and then back it up just the change files. Now, how do we get the change files? We get the change files in literally a couple of seconds. And if you compare this to a traditional backup, which will treat Nutanix files as a dumb share and use the NDMP approach to back them up, it's done during the night only, right? Taking a couple of hours to do a backup. Whereas with Haiku, what does this change file tracking mean? This means let's go to shares back. So let me show you. If I had 1 million, this file share is actually, if we look at the full backup, it's going to be interesting to see it has 3.8 million files in this file share, right? And imagine that a couple of files change and you need to do a backup in the middle of the day because production, it was a very important change. So any other software is going to take 5 hours to traverse this file tree to find this file changed files. And with Haiku, if you look at here, there are 7 files changed in this backup and the backup completed in 33 seconds. And that's the difference. That's the difference which you get by utilizing the platform to the fullest, by utilizing the change file tracking, because now you can have your RPO on 1 hour. And you really do not risk losing the data during production hours because we are not impacting the servers during backup as well, right? And that's the essence of it. That's the essence of the backup solution. And Manfred was mentioning at the beginning also the SLA-driven policies and how we do it. So you might have seen this in other products as well, but not to the extent, right? So when we are thinking of designing the backup policies, we're always thinking, what's the most important? It's to map the business needs to something that the IT admins can relate to. So when business says, I can't lose more than an hour of work during production, then you say backup every 1 hour. That's your RPO. And Haiku is going to do everything it can to start a backup inside an hour so that we can keep this RPO. But what's even more interesting is the RTO. And this is something nobody does in the world, right? RTO is when you ask yourselves, right? How much time do you have to restore the data? You know, my business mandates, I need to have the restores back inside 4 hours, or I will be losing potentially millions of dollars in business. And when you ask the admin, can you restore your data in 4 hours? The question is usually, you know, listening to the wind and trying to understand if it can be done. The thing with Haiku is we will actually estimate how much time it's going to take us based on the targets, which we are constantly following, based on the throughputs, based on the sizes. We will estimate how much time it's going to take us. And if you see in the compliance, it says estimated time for recovery is 3 hours and 50 minutes for this 4 million files share. And if this is less than 4 hours, this means you're compliant. You can keep your SLAs to the business. And if something changes, then the estimates are going to change. The policies are going to say something is not compliant. So this is the peace of mind which Haiku is giving to our customers with this SLA-driven policies, not only to the backup extent, but also to the restore extent. Manfred, is this what you had in mind?
That's
right?
what I had in mind.
Very good.
Oh, really simple, really easy to go, you know.
Exactly.
And it's just one UI. It looks always the same. So nobody need to change anything. Everybody can manage files with backups. It's nothing separate. It feels just like one unit.
Correct.
Really great in the silos.
Yes.
And no silos.
Yes, exactly. Right, so when we talk about silos also, one of the silos is where to back up the data, right? And now Haiku can literally back up to practically any backup target. So be it cloud, be it Azure, Google, Amazon, S3 compliant storage, or be it on-prem as well with all the protocols, NFS, SMB, and objects, and Nutanix Mine as well. So removing another silo, if you think about it, from the target perspective. Why would the target need to be a silo if you can run it on Nutanix and if you can have a single view of all your environment on Nutanix and a seamless upgrade with all the bells and whistles which Nutanix offers? Why not use it for targets as well? And when you combine this to the objects target, which has the worm capability of write once, read many times, what you actually get is a ransomware protection in a box. I think we had a webinar recently also on this topic, but it definitely applies also to the files themselves. Ransomware is very active today, very important to kind of think about it and take care about it. And what Haiku brings is ability to utilize objects as a target or cloud as well. And what you have with Haiku is a very secure lockdown appliance because it's a CentOS image running on version 8. We have a lot of federal customers always pushing us to keep with the latest patches. So what you get is a really secure appliance, which is not going to be easily penetratable like, you know, potentially Windows backups or similar. And on top of that, you get a number of built-in software locks, like you can't expire the backups on your own if you don't allow it from the console and similar, right? Or the button to actually for the legal holds and similar, and encryption, you know, you name it, it's in there, right? So all of this makes a incredibly good ransomware protection and can be definitely combined with Nutanix Files as well. Okay. Let's listen. Yeah, a couple of more slides and then back to you, Manfred. So one other thing which is important with the files is scale, right? As Vincent said at the beginning, it's going sky high with the numbers of files and data growth, right? And you want to be able to continue and back it up. So what's interesting about Haiku, you can easily start with small shares and rise to terabytes and petabytes and millions of files which you can back up. And you can scale also not only to the size of the shares, but you can also scale to the number of different file servers on different Nutanix clusters. And you can have one single Haiku, but what we have is something called Haiku instances. If I use, let's see. I can't find the pointer which you saw me mustered, but never mind. So what you have is this Haiku instance, which you can actually deploy to help with the data traffic and help with the dynamic load balancing of multiple file shares at the same time, going to different targets, right? And this can help you just scale up or scale out in the systems. And how it looks in Haiku, basically what you have, as I said, it's these instances of Haiku, which are here, which you can deploy multiple of them, and they're just gonna load balance and take care of the data traffic. And what's nice about them is they will automatically get deployed, and they automatically get also upgraded as well. So that's practically no hassle with them as well. So you can scale, but sometimes, as you said, Vincent, also, or was it you, Manfred, you keep a lot of data which actually might not even require to exist, let alone to be backed up. So why back it up? So with Haiku, it's very simple to set exceptions. So per share, you can very easily say configure, and look, I just really don't need to take this exclude share because we're all data, right? You just say all data doesn't have to be inside, and that's it.
Don't exclude my video files.
Oh, sorry. Okay. all data back. Right, and then let's talk about restores. I mean, we did all the backups. I think it looks great, but can we restore, and how do we restore? So what's interesting about Haiku is, same as we do for VMs, we are able to, Nutanix snapshots are a wealth of power and potential for the restore. So why not utilize them? So with Haiku, we can actually restore, you can tell us to keep the snapshot which we use for backup, keep it a bit longer on the system. Why? Because the snapshot which is there, if it's still on Nutanix, Haiku is going to immediately use that snapshot, never going to the target, producing practically very instant recovery from the snapshot, right? And these snapshots, what's interesting, they can also be used by, for instance, Windows previous version and so on, so you can automatically manually also restore them as well, if you want directly from the instances. So we keep these snapshots, but if they're not there, we will go to the target and fetch exactly the single file which you need. And how do you get the file? Well, there's a global catalog. So everything we do, as I showed you in the beginning, is catalog. So if I need to go in and restore a single file or a folder, it's enough to just say browse and restore files, select the file or folder which I need. Okay, seems to be a lot of things in. And you're able to restore them back into the original location, into a different location on the share. You can export. And what's interesting is override, rename, all the options which you would expect and want. We also keep the ACLs as part of this catalog operation. And we allow you also to export a full share as well, if you like, to another SMB or NFS share, Nutanix, right? Of course. So this is the restore part as well. So at the end, why Haiku? Why? What did we talk about just now?
So Marco, one question on the restore.
Sure.
We talked on the beginning. So you also tell me what's the SLA on the restore. So you will tell me how much time it will take.
Exactly. So if we look at the compliance icon, if you look at the compliance icon, it's going to tell you for each of the backups what's the estimated time for recovery. And it's same for the virtual machines as well when we back them up. Basically, based on the sizes, based on the throughputs, and we constantly follow the target. So if something changes with the target, if it's slowing down, if network is slowing down, then the estimates are going to change over time, and then you're going to get notified. Hey, this is not according to your SLAs in the policy anymore. It might be good to react before it's too late, before you need to restore the data and figure out, it's going to take me 2 days to restore it, right? And you can always see how much it's going to take you by looking here at estimated time for recovery.
Yeah, because in backup world, a lot of times we hear the joke, everybody talks about backup, but nobody about restore.
Yes.
I feel this makes a difference and give the administrator back the information. Hey, here is something you should look into that you can support the business.
Exactly. Ultimately, this is your job, because your job is to keep these times here. Otherwise, you're not doing it right. And
but if you don't get the information, it's hard to.
Exactly. It's practically impossible. It's practically impossible. Yeah. Talking to admins, it's literally listening to the winds and trying to test it out, but you can't test it every day or every hour. You test it once a month, right? It's not enough.
Okay.
This will make their life a lot easier then.
Exactly. That's a gregreat question. Thanks, Martin, for doing it. Right. So why Haiku at the end of the presentation from this part is, minimal maintenance. I've shown you how simple it is. It's as simple as that also to upgrade. Upgrade is literally a couple of minutes because we just deploy a new image, we clone the data disk from the existing Haiku and you're done. You just power on the new VM and you're done. So it's very simple and very Nutanix-like, if I may say so. No silo, right? It's just a vApp, full scalability as we've shown you before. A very unified experience with not only this, which you saw today on Nutanix, but you have built-in reporting with self-service, which is incredibly important also for the administrators where you want maybe some parts of the organization to be able to do self-service recoveries or backups on their own as well, like DevOps teams and similar. So you can do this easily with Haiku as well. And at the end of the day, we keep it simple also on the licensing. We'll talk about this towards the end. And maybe my favorite, if I have to choose out of all of these, is we are native to Nutanix. And what this means is Nutanix innovates at incredible pace. And you need to, if you want to take this innovation and constantly be up to date and constantly utilize this innovation of Nutanix, you need to have backup which is going to follow. You can't install a new version of Nutanix Files if the backup don't support it. Right? You can't take a new feature if you can't back it up. And what Haiku has proven in the last 4 years since we started with Nutanix is that we immediately support all the versions, all the releases, and immediately jump on all the new functionality to support Nutanix and our customers. Right, so back to you, Manfred.
Okay, give me a second.
Let me stop sharing.
Yeah, let me share my screen. Okay, do you see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Checking. Yeah, and so we heard a lot about the Haiku integration. Backup, just a part of the file services, how I call it. But as you manage file services, I want to jump on a few features. We talk about simplicity, but simplicity not only always means what an administrator has to do. Can a system support an administrator in a way to give recommendations? We hear all the time in the industry AI, machine learning, and we implemented this technology. And what we also do is we give our administrators, the file services administrators, recommendations. That's what you see in here. Let me highlight it. There's a pointer. That's what you see in here. And we tell them, hey, you should load balance anything. You should make the VMs bigger, whatever. So we give the information around what to do and give recommendations. That's a game changer. Scale up, scale down, whatever it is. And when we talk about performance optimization, sometimes it means, hey, please add more memory to the VM or add more VMs to the file server. So we see here a file server consistent of 3 VMs, a file server cluster. We can add up 16 VMs. But sometimes it could be that one VM is overloaded. And so we also have the capability to say, hey, this VM is overloaded. Please remove a share or push a share to a different VM, which is underutilized. And we basically more or less transparent move it over and load balance your workload. So you always have the perfect balance on your performance. And we give the machine learning recommendations into this one. So manage files in a different way. And now I talk about a different way. Deliver data-driven insights, what a word, but we talk about data management and data insight. And for this one, let me jump live into it. We give you information about the data, and the live data shows more. So we are on a Nutanix cluster. You have seen the screenshots before. So everything is integrated. You just go in, you see the overview, what's going on my system in general, VMs running, and so on. Is everything healthy? And then you go just into the file server. Here you have file server. You can have many of them. You saw some of the screenshots. How many files do I have? How many exports? What are open connections? What's going on with the performance? So on this system, nothing is running, or the share and the exports. So you get all the insights, antivirus, scanning the connections. Are there any alerts? So all the information, but we don't stop in here. We just say, hey, I want to know what's going on with the data. And here we talk about file analytics. And here's my file analytics. I see the capacity trend. what's going on. In my system, there's not a lot of going on. That's why I switch in a more lively system. So you see how much data has been added, how much data has been removed. Do I have special anomalies? What are my users doing? I have some permission denials. What is this user doing? Which file is he accessing? From which IP address is he coming? Is it something which comes from outside? What is the file? What does he want to do? So I call this one manage your files, your NAS, based on information. It's not anymore guessing what's going on. What's the file distribution? How many files I have, bigger than a megabyte, bigger than gigabytes, whatever. What's the distribution of the different file types, images, video images, and you can set the file types by your own and add file types. So you really see what is on the data, but we don't stop there. How many have heard about compliance, or how many times the user calls the help desk and says, hey, I lost my file, whatever video. Can you tell me I moved it somewhere? Can you tell me where it is? So I just put it in here and I see on which share, in which folder. So I can help my users, but that's just a side function. In reality, I can do an audit. An audit means for compliance, I can report who accessed this file, who changed the file, what has been done with the file, when was the last access. Again, managing your files.
So you can also see when, perhaps if you need a specific change, you can see when you change it, and then you can go to by the timestamp to respective backup and just restore it.
Yeah, you can select the operations here. Thank you, Marco, for coming in. Is it an attribute change? Is it a permission denied? Is it whatever? So you can change what has been done. You can select it. And this one is not only for files, you can do it for folders, but you also can audit users. You may want to see, hey, there's a user. I don't know really what it's doing. I need to know it. Or based on an IP, and I feel an IP sometimes is important. Think about, we talked about ransomware and all these things. One is, a lot of times it comes in from an own machine from somewhere. And I believe either it's the user machines out there, or it's embedded machines we have today, in all type of production areas. So if there's something in there, you can say, hey, this type of IP, please have a look in there. Is there coming in from something from there? So really getting information, what's going on. And on top of it, you can define anomalies. And anomalies mean, is anybody deleting a lot of data in a certain amount of time, creating a lot of data time, renaming? So you can define new anomalies and anomaly types here, basically deletion, create permission change. Does anybody change it? Is it a file blocking? And especially on ransomware, the people basically change and delete files. So on this pattern, if it happens in a certain amount of time, you even can say, hey, there's an anomaly which could be a ransomware, a malware. But again, what we deliver to you, information. It's not guesses anymore. And you can export the data. You can blacklist certain IP addresses because there may be some things you want to hide. You don't want to show to everybody. So also can be blacklisting. But again, what we do is we bring in information-based data management. That's how I call it basically. And our marketing said deliver data-driven insights, but manage your data based on information rather than guesses. And with this one, I'm on the end. Really, files is a game changer. How you operate NAS, how you operate software-defined storage, and how you manage data. And together with Haiku, how you have one entity which does all the file services, including the backup. Now I hand back to Vincent.
Thanks, Manfred. Yeah, I think we saw a lot on simplicity, right? And thanks for that, for sharing that, Manfred and Marco. And I think the second point would be flexibility, right? The freedom to choose, not having lock-ins, especially in past times, we saw a lot of lock-ins. And that's exactly what we would like to avoid at Nutanix. We give you freedom of choice. And the freedom of choice means any hypervisor. So if you're running Nutanix own hypervisor, AHV, or VMware, it's all supported. Also, any hardware platform. You want to avoid hardware lock-ins. You want to have freedom of choice on which vendor you would like to choose in terms of hardware. Could be Lenovo, Dell, Cisco, Fujitsu. Maybe you want to switch in a few years. Go to the cheapest vendor possible. It's all possible, right? It's all possible within the same system, within the same clusters.
No data migration anymore.
No data migration. So you just phase out the old nodes, phase in new nodes, just like the hyperscalers are doing. Right? There's no data migration at Amazon or Azure, right? They're just phasing in old nodes, phasing out the old nodes and phasing in new ones. And that's exactly the same way how we build it. Of course, any deployment model, if you want to run it in the edge, if you want to run it in a data center, or a combination. We have a reference, for example, having 35 remote locations replicating into 4 central data centers worldwide with Nutanix Files, consolidating all file services worldwide just in one management interface. It's really powerful. And I think last but not least, you also want cloud-based consumption. Typically in the past, with the traditional heavy metal 3-tier architectures, we saw 5 years upfront investment, right? People bought storage systems for 5 years, wrote it off, migrated all data to a new system, bought a new one. And actually you don't want that. You want a cloud-based consumption model where you pay exactly for what you need. And that's what we're offering. It's terabyte based. And it's also the way we charge you is from a year term to a 7-year term. So if you take a year term, you say, well, after a year, I don't like it. Nobody does that, but you could change, right? So it gives you complete freedom of choice. There's always a way out. So there's no lock-in whatsoever. And I think last but not least, in our operational model, you can run it on-prem, but you can also run it off-prem. So we recently released Nutanix clusters on AWS. Nutanix clusters on Azure is on the way. So you can also run your complete Nutanix environment into AWS. Put it in there, get it out there. So complete freedom of choice in terms of how you run your infrastructure.
I would add a point, Vincent.
Yep.
I think the key thing is you do not need to change operations.
Exactly.
You operate it the same way on premise like you operate it in the public cloud. If you have separate devices, separate silos, you need to operate them separate on premise versus in the public cloud. And here it's one operation.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
from Haiku perspective, we fully obviously support. So we are again the first backup to be certified on the Nutanix clusters in AWS, and you can deploy us there same as you would in on-prem. There is no difference. Plus, there is no lock-in as well with Haiku. So we are fully on par, supporting you again.
Thanks, Marco. So yeah, and I think Nutanix clusters, we're currently the only ones giving you a full hybrid cloud concept, which you can easily deploy, easily manage with the same operations like you said, Manfred. And I think that's a unique way of approaching current cloud strategy. Also, last but not least, every Nutanix customer has 1 terabyte files for free. So you can test with that. You can even run that in production. And also Haiku has a 1 terabyte Nutanix files backup and recovery license for free forever. So you're free to install Nutanix Files, free to install integrated backup with Haiku, and start using it. Yeah, I think that wraps it up. Thanks, Marco. Thanks, Manfred. Any closing words from your side?
It was a pleasure working with you guys. We have to repeat.
Cool. Thanks everyone for listening to this webinar, and I hope to see you on the next one.
Thank you.
Have
Bye.
a great day.
Bye-bye.